Hello there. It is the year 2015, and humanity has still not invented the ability of flight for humans. Back to the Future said we could have something like this by this time, but that's not the case. But three men will change this idea forever. As you may not have noticed, I am the Watchman. Our characters are from the land of the Cornheads, and this is where our tale begins. It is a sunny morning in not-so-good Illinois. Blastovich wakes from his sleep like usual. He gets up to check the news for the day on the worldwide interwebs, only to find that these videos of teens messing around trying to fly with weird contraptions.
Blastovich thought to himself, why would people try something so dumb to only hurt themselves in the end? Night came around and Blastovich went to sleep like usual, but tonight would be very, very different. Blastovich woke up from his deep slumber in the middle of the night, only to find that there were three strange beings looking at him, wandering around his room. They approached him with caution. One of the beings stretched their hand out and put it on Blastovich's head, sending him images of humans flying all by themselves. When the beings took his hand away from Blastovich's head, he shed a tear of how beautiful the visions he just witnessed. After the three beings opened the window and jumped out to only see them fly away all by themselves, Blastovich was so overcome by what he just witnessed, he fainted and fell on the floor. When he came to, Blastovich looked to the wall next to him to find that there was a note there with the title of Ingredients to Fly. Below there were words saying that there were 3 ingredient combinations to create. Blastovich soon ran downstairs to the phone to call his friends Vaughn and Stan. They both were amazed by what they just listened to. Blastovich then got the idea to have their help when he was doing his project. He asked, and both replied with, "Pigs will fly," which means yes. So all 3 met together at Blastovich's house, Vaughn, Stan, and Blastovich, together to attempt to fly. Later that day, the 3 were gathered in the kitchen looking at the list. There were also 3 types of ingredients listed that they could choose from. Vaughn brought up the idea that each of us should try one of these and see if they work. They all agreed, and then Stan and Blastovich volunteered Vaughn to go first. One of them got the idea to use a blender to mix it all together. So they looked at the list and gathered all the 3 ingredients. They called for carrots, ice, and something called Himalayan salt. For some reason, they had all of them. So the 3 got the ingredients and gathered them and put them into the mixer. When it was done blending, Vaughn grabbed it and gulped it down in one gulp. Then they looked around and thought to themselves, Vaughn should jump off a high place, like a baby bird jumping from their nest for the first time to try to learn how to fly. The 3 went upstairs to Blastovich's bathroom and went out the window onto the roof. Vaughn soon began to think that it was a bad idea, but the 2 men began to nag him on to do it. Soon Vaughn fell under peer pressure to do it, and without warning, he jumped off. For a second, he felt like he was flying. For 1, 2 seconds, and then, BLAM! Right on the ground, and the other guys looked at themselves and ran downstairs to check on Vaughn. When they did, they found him on his face, laughing, saying that he could feel like he was flying for a second. But Blast and Stan views did not look like that. The men gathered in the kitchen again to discuss on what to do next. They thought that Vaughn would say that he was out of it, but in fact, he was already looking at the list, saying on what they should try next. After saying that, Stan said that he will be the next one to step up to the plate. This next one also called for lettuce and pickles and hot sauce. They gathered the ingredients and mixed them together. Stan then started to drink it all down and said that it was the most okay thing he'd ever tasted, and said that we should go to the park and I will jump off the highest point that we can find.
The three men gathered at the park and went to the playground to climb the highest point that they could. Then Stan got set to jump. Without warning, before anybody was ready, Stan jumped off and felt like he was flying in the clouds for not 1, not 2, but 3 to 4 seconds this time. But then, like last time, blam! Right on his back. This knocked the air right out of him. The other two ran down as quickly as they could, finding Stan on the ground, gasping for air, so they went to him to help him. But Stan then lifted himself up, saying that he felt like that he was flying for a few seconds. And Vaughn said, "You did it too? Didn't it feel amazing?" Stan agreed, but Blastovich said that there is only one more to do, that he hopes that it will work for him. The men gathered in the back of the kitchen around 8 p.m., looking at the list and seeing what there was left to do. It called for, this time, chicken, kale, and lastly on the list, blue Bic pen ink. The men looked at each other, saying to Blastovich, "You don't have to do this if you don't want to." But Blastovich was set on flying, said that nothing will stand in his way of success. But they had none of the ingredients that it called for, and for that they said we should come back tomorrow here with the ingredients, then mix them together and attempt to fly one last time. The next day came around and Blastovich got up and went to the store for what he was in charge of getting. When he got back home, the other two were sitting on his doorstep talking. When Blastovich came up to them, the two men started to ask him if he was sure he wanted to try this. They told him that he could get really sick from consuming the ink from the pen, and could even die, but Blastovich wanted to do it no matter what the odds. So the three went inside and brought the ingredients and put them into the blender. The kale and chicken were added, then lastly, the ink. It was all in there. With the press of a button, it was mixed together. When it was done, the blender shorted out and broke. Vaughn said, "Well, looks like this is our last shot. Better make it count." Stan grabbed the blender and gave it to Blastovich, and drank it all down. The two men asked how did it taste, but Blastovich said it didn't taste like anything. And so they approached the door, ready to go to their next destination to see if it works. But before they were able to get to the car, Blastovich fainted and fell to the ground. When Blastovich woke up, he looked around and noticed that he was not in the same area that he was when he fainted. He was looking around, seeing if there was anybody by him, but there was no one there. He was looking around, but then looked to his right and found that there was a car that just pulled up right next to him, and Vaughn and Stan jumped out, yelling, "We did it! We did it!" Blastovich asked, "What did we do?" And they replied with, "You flew! You flew!" And he asked, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "When you fainted, your body, it rose and it flew through the sky, and we followed you all the way over here." Blast got up and rejoiced with Vaughn and Stan too. Vaughn got the great idea that they should go buy another blender and try out Blastovich's ingredients. But before they could get to the car, Blast tripped on his own feet, fell on his face, and fainted again. Let's wrap things up, shall we? When Blastovich woke up, those aliens that he witnessed earlier were actually still in his room. Blastovich looked at his phone, seeing that it was actually 3 days back, the night that the aliens actually visited him. He then got the idea that all that he just witnessed was just visions that the alien put in his head. Instead of the aliens jumping out the window, this time they just went out the front door and got into a car for some reason. Blastovich, overcome with pain, decided to lay down and ended up falling asleep. When Blastovich got up the next day and went to his garage to get his car to meet Vaughn and Stan, he realized that his car was gone, and also with a lot of his belongings, and realized that everything that just happened was fake, and those weren't aliens, and he got robbed. So you're asking, what was the point of this story? Well, I might tell you. Don't trust aliens, and, don't, trust aliens. Morals. Yay! The end. This was very long.
Expected the world, but it flew away from her reach. So she ran away in her sleep and dreamed of paradise, paradise. Every time she closed her eyes. Expect